Welcome back to post-Thanksgiving boot camp. I hope everybody had a great holiday. Let's jump into some more ASL. Up next for tutorial 25, I have actually a 4-part series on the basics of the 2-hit and 2-kill process, and you can see the outline here. Part 1, which is this one, will be the 2-hit mechanics. Part 2 will be 2-kill mechanics, or the results mechanics. Step 3 or part 3 will be a bunch of examples, and what I'm going to do is probably, instead of coming up with situations on a board, I think I'm just going to pull up some log files, just like I did with the close combat examples, and just have a bunch of examples from log files and step through those on various 2-hit, 2-kill situations involving infantry, vehicles, etc. And then part 4, and this will probably be down the road a little bit, will be a Let's Play tutorial. We'll do a small scenario, a complete playthrough of a small scenario, annotated like I've done with the infantry-based scenarios that I did, guards counterattack and retaking Fairville. But this will involve guns and vehicles, mortars, small scenario, and the whole 2-hit 2 process in that. Okay, so let's jump into 2-hit mechanics. I'm going to keep it simple because we're focusing on chapter C. When you introduce chapter D with moving vehicles and movement, it gets a little more complicated. So let's stick with the basics right now with stationary targets and stationary firers. So in this simple example I'm going to show, after I go through the 2-hit process, we're going to have a stationary gun firing at a stationary vehicle. Very simple example to show you how you calculate the numbers for the 2-hit process. So I always like to boil it down to what is whatever I'm covering in a nutshell. Distill all the words of all the paragraphs into the essence of what it actually is. And 2-hit mechanics in a nutshell is this. These, 7 bullets? Can I see it? If you have a line of sight to it, you can shoot it. And remember, you cannot check a line of sight until you actually announce you're going to shoot. Once you've announced you're going to shoot, how far away is it? That's the first thing you need to determine. Also, you do not need to announce you're firing before you do the math to decide if it's a shot worth taking. You don't have to announce a shot and then do all the math and go, oh, I need a 1 to hit it, which is impossible. You can do the math in your head. You can think about it for a minute, depending on your opponent. Scott and I, my partner in crime, we like to take our time and decide if we want to take a shot, if it's even worth the time to even take a shot. So how far away is it? That's the first step of determining, is it worth a shot? What kind of target is it? Is it infantry in woods, in a building? Is it a vehicle driving through the field? What have you? What kind of gun and ammo am I using? Then you calculate the modified to hit number. And then you apply situational conditions to it, which are more die roll modifiers. And then you make your roll against the final 2 hit number required to see if you actually made a hit on that target. And I'm going to step through those bullets in even more detail, and then we'll jump into example. So let's take that nutshell and peel it away a little bit and get into the meat of the walnut inside. So the first thing you do is you select the target. Is it a vehicle? Is it infantry? Is it a gun? And this determines the target type, which is an important aspect of the 2-hit process. And I'll go into that in the third section here, announce the target type. Determine the range. A range is simple. How many hexes is it to the target? If you're using Vassal, you could, after you've actually announced you're going to fire, you can check the line of sight and use the Vassal line of sight tool, and it'll calculate the number of hexes for you. If you're playing on a physical board, just count the number of hexes between the gun, the firer, and the target. After that's done, announce the target type. Some targets, there are three target types. There's vehicle target type, infantry target type, and area target type. And what you announce determines your initial basic two-hit number, as well as what effects may take place if you get a hit. If you're firing at a vehicle, very easy, vehicle target type. If you're firing at anything else, you can usually choose between infantry target type and area target type. Mortars must always use area target type. Other forms of guns, firing HE, can choose either infantry target type or area target type. Kind of just depends on what you're firing, and I'll get into target types maybe in a later video, but in essence, infantry target types, you can only hit a location. In other words, the first floor, upper floor of a building. Area target type hits everything in the hex. There may be different modifiers depending on what units are in which location in the hex. And SK players, there's no locations for you. You're just firing at a hex. But for full ASL, infantry target type, you can fire at a specific location within a hex. Area target type, basically everything, this is in a nutshell. Basically everything fires within the hex and everything is affected, possibly with different modifiers. After you've announced the target type, which is usually pretty simple, you announce your ammo type. If you're firing a tank, it's usually AP. If you're firing at infantry, it's usually HE. Sometimes you don't have a choice. Some guns only have AP and some guns only have HE. So you must announce your ammo type, especially if it's special ammo and you have a depletion number on that gun. You really need to make sure you follow that step, because if you roll good or poor enough, you either have the ammo or you don't have the ammo, and that affects what you decide to do next. Okay, after that, you determine the modified two-hit number, and I'll step through this here in a second. Basically, you add modifiers to your basic two-hit number based on the gun characteristics. That's table C4. Then once you have your modified two-hit number, you apply your situational die roll modifiers. And there are two types. There are firer-based, which is table C5, and target-based, C6. Firer-based means, is the gun moving? Is the tank buttoned up? Things like that. If it's target-based, it's things like, is the target in behind a wall or in woods, or is it a small target? Things like that. And then you make your die roll, and the die roll plus your situational die roll modifiers must be less than or equal to your modified two-hit number. Sounds simple, right? It is. Let me show you. Let's take a look at this slide here. So here's the formula for calculating your two-hit number. Boil down all the paragraphs in chapter C3, C3. Your basic two-hit number is range-based. You find that on table C3, and I'll show you that here in a minute. You add to that your gun characteristics, such as your barrel length, how that affects it, the caliber being used, and the type of ammo being used. And that can be a negative number or positive. You add that to the basic two-hit number, and that equals your modified two-hit number. And then I'll show you here in this example in this line. Let's say a 57L gun fires APDS at a vehicle that's 14 hexes away. So let's pull up all the two-hit tables and the die roll modifier tables. So if we look at table C3, we're firing at a vehicle, and we're firing AP ammunition. Well, we're firing APDS in this case. Range of 14, the two-hit number, basic two-hit number is an 8. If you were say you were a Russian nationality, you would use the red two-hit numbers, and you can determine which color to-hit, basic two-hit number you use from your nationality capabilities chart. It'll tell you whether you use the black two-hit numbers or the red two-hit numbers. In this case, we're using the black. So your basic two-hit number is an 8. Then the next table down, just right below it, is C4, gun and ammo basic two-hit number modifications. We have a 57L, so it's an L weapon. We're at range 14, so if you go down the 14 column, you add 1 to your basic two-hit number. Further, the longer barrel weapons are more effective at targets that are further away. So an L weapon adds 1 to your basic number, so your basic two-hit number goes up to a 9. We're firing APDS, which is not effective at long range as an ammo. Therefore, at range 14, we subtract 1 from the basic two-hit number. So we're back down to 8. And then finally, smaller caliber weapons aren't effective at longer ranges. We're at 57 millimeter, less than or equal to 57 millimeter. Thus, we subtract another 1. Therefore, our modified two-hit number for this example is a 7. And if you notice on table C4 here, there's a less than equal to 57 millimeter and a less than equal to 40 millimeter. They are cumulative. Therefore, if you have a 37 millimeter gun, for example, and you fire, it's a -2 to the basic two-hit number because it's less than equal to 57 and it's less than and equal to 40 millimeter. So those calibers on the C4 table for modifying basic two-hit number, they are cumulative. Remember that. Okay, in this example, we have a modified two-hit number of 7. Now we're going to jump into the actual board here, and I have the situation laid out. Okay, we have this American 57L, and it is manned by a crew. Guns must always be manned. Smart weapons and guns must always be manned with a crew. But I'm just going to move him out of the way just to make it a little bit easier. Let's flip it over. Let's just look at what this gun has. It has, if you notice, there's an asterisk next to the caliber here. It's an underscore, so it can only fire armor piercing, but there's an asterisk. That usually means look in the Chapter H rule book, Chapter H notes, or flip it over. And here you can see, even though it's underscored, it can fire HE. It has a depletion number of 7, and it can only fire at June 1944 in the European scenarios. And it has a depletion number of 7 in 1945 for any theater of operation. And then it also has APDS with a depletion of 4, June 44 and onward in Europe. So you can fire APDS starting in June 44 in European theater scenarios, okay? And over here we have this Stug IIIG, 14 hexes away. It's stationary here for whatever reason. Let's just assume it's stationary and not moving. Keep it simple here. And he is going to fire. So let's run through this example again. Let's pull up. I'll put up the tables here in the playfield, overlaid over the playfield. Let's do the math. Okay, we need to check our range. Can I see it? He can see it. Okay. What's the range? It is 14. You can count it out if you'd like. What type of target am I going to fire at? Well, I'm not going to fire area target type. That wouldn't be useful. Or infantry target type. That you can't. So I'm going to fire vehicle target type. And I'm going to attempt APDS, even though my depletion number is a 4 on this. If I roll anything over a 4, if you remember from the previous tutorial when I went over gun characteristics, if I fire, actually no, it was in a special ammo hack tactical tip that I went over this. If I roll anything over a 4, original die roll, meaning what I physically roll, a 4 or greater than 4, I have no ammo and never took a shot. If I roll 4, I get 1 shot with APDS. If I roll less than 4, I got the shot with APDS and I have this, still have the ammo. Okay, but I'm going to take an APDS shot. Okay, we can see it. We know how far away it is. We know the target, vehicle target type. We picked an ammo. Let's calculate our modified two-hit number. So the basic two-hit number is 8, if you see here on the chart. Vehicle target type, range of 14. We have, again, an example here. We have an L gun, so we have +1. We're firing APDS, -1, so let's cancel. And then the caliber is 57 millimeter. We subtract 1. So our modified two-hit number from the basic is a 7. Okay, now let's add in the situational die roll modifiers. Let's look at, you usually start with the firer first, the person firing. In this case, very simple, there are none. There are no modifiers. And if you look through here, bounding fire, nobody's moving, not firing in the advancing fire phase, not pinned, not firing within my own hex, not intensive fire, not buttoned up. So the firer-based die roll modifier is 0. Let's look over at the tank, okay? Target-based die roll modifiers. He's not moving. This isn't a FNAM FMO situation. He's not concealed. It's not point blank. It's not bore-sighted. It's not acquired yet. Target size, case P. White background on the armor factors indicates a small target. He only has 1 under the front armor, so it's a +1 situational or environmental, I like to call it as well, die roll modifier to the final two-hit number that you need to roll. There's no TEM involved, and there's no line of sight or low visibility hindrance. If there was a grain field here, for example, there would be an additional +1 hindrance. If there were 2 grain fields, there would be an additional +2 to hit. But in this case, the modified two-hit number is a 7, and the die roll modifier is a +1 for a small target. And I'm firing APDS with a depletion number of 4. So let me roll here to see what happens. Okay, I rolled a 5, which means I rolled above the APDS depletion number, which means I didn't have the ammo to begin with. In fact, I didn't even take a shot at all, which means I can fire again. There was no acquisition because the shot never took place because I didn't even have the ammo. So now I'm going to fire just normal armor piercing. So if we run through the example again of calculating our modified two-hit number, the basic two-hit number is 8, firing an L weapon +1, and caliber -1. There's no APDS involved this time, so now we need a hit 8 to hit, and there's no depletion number because this anti-tank gun has armor-piercing ammo all day long, okay? And it has a rate of fire of 3. Keep that in mind. If we would have gotten a hit here, that they would have gotten rate of fire. The +1 still applies. The situational/environmental modifiers still apply. +1 because this is a small target. So the modified two-hit number is an 8. I'm going to roll the die and add 1 to it. And if it's 8 or less, I get a hit. Let's see what happens. Got a hit. Rolled a 5. Add 1 to that is a 6. That's less than our modified two-hit number. I got a hit. I did not get rate of fire because I rolled a 4. So this gun would be marked with a, depending on what phase it is, with a prep fire. And since we said this Stug wasn't moving, it's probably a defensive final fire, or you'd mark it with a final fire counter. Targeting, range, target type, ammo type, calculating a modified two-hit number, gathering your situational die roll modifiers, making your roll, adding your die roll modifiers to that, and if it's less than your modified two-hit number, you get a hit. Okay. Next up, in the next video, we'll go over the to kill mechanics, and I'll have another simple example. Maybe we'll just continue this and use this example, or maybe I'll come with another example. Then part 3, we'll do a bunch of examples. Then down the road, part 5, we'll do a let's play annotated playthrough of a very small scenario involving guns and vehicles. Okay, I'll see you in part 2 boot camp next time.